One for our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada in his most sacred house in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And before we begin, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namaom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. And to each other, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. For those of you who are watching us online, please note there are English subtitles given below on the page which will help you to follow us along. And Hari Bol to Mother Mahadevi, who is also with us online today. So today we will begin reading from chapter 76. Chapter 76, the battle between Shalva and members of the Yadu dynasty. While Sukadev Goswami was narrating various activities of Lord Krishna in playing the role of an ordinary human being, he also narrated the history of the battle between the dynasty of Yadu and a demon of the name Shalva, who had managed to possess a wonderful airship named Sobha. King Shalva was a great friend of Shishupala's. When Shishupal went to marry Rukmini, Shalva was one of the members of the bridegroom's party. In the fight between the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty and the kings of the opposite side, Shalva was defeated by the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. But despite his defeat, he made a promise before all the kings that he would in the future rid the whole world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. Since his defeat in the fight during the marriage of Rukmini, he had maintained within himself an unforgettable envy of Lord Krishna, and he was in fact a fool because he had promised to kill Krishna.
Usually such foolish demons take shelter of a demigod like Lord Shiva to execute their ulterior plans. And so in order to get strength, Shalva took refuge at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. He underwent a severe type of austerity during which he would eat no more than a handful of ashes daily. Lord Shiva, the husband of Parvati, is generally very merciful and is very quickly satisfied if someone undertakes severe austerities to please him. So after continued austerities by Shalva for 1 year, Lord Shiva became pleased with him and asked him to beg for the fulfillment of his desire. Shalva begged from Lord Shiva the gift of an airplane which would be so strong that it could not be destroyed by any demigods, demon, human beings, Gandharvas or Naga, or even any Rakshasas. Moreover, he desired that the airplane be able to fly anywhere and everywhere he would like to pilot it, and be specifically very dangerous and fearful to the dynasty of the Yadus. Lord Shiva immediately agreed to give him the benediction, and Shalva took the help of a demon, Maya, to manufacture this iron airplane, which was so strong and formidable that no one could crash it. It was a very big machine, almost like a big city, and it could fly so high at such a great speed that it was almost impossible to see, so there was no question of attacking it. It appeared to be almost covered with darkness, yet the pilot could fly it anywhere and everywhere. Having acquired such a wonderful airplane, Shalva flew it to the city of Dwarka, because his main purpose in obtaining the airplane was to attack the city of the Yadus, towards whom he maintained a constant feeling of animosity.
Shalva thus attacked the city of Dwaraka from the sky, and he also surrounded the city by a large number of infantry. The soldiers on the surface attacked the beautiful spots of the city. They began to destroy the nice parts, the city gates, the palaces, and the skyscraper houses, the high walls around the city, and the beautiful spots where people would gather for recreation. While the soldiers attacked on the surface, the airplane began to drop big slabs of stone, tree trunks, thunderbolts, poisonous snakes, and many other dangerous things. Salva also managed to create such a strong whirlwind within the city that all of Dwaraha became dark because of the dust that covered the city. The airplane occupied by Salva put the entire city of Dwaraga into distress equal to that caused on the earth long ago by the disturbing activities of Triburasura. The inhabitants of Dwaraga Puri became so harassed that they were not peaceful for even a moment.
The great heroes of Dwarka city, headed by commanders such as Pradyumna, counterattacked the soldiers and airplane of Shalva. When he saw the extreme distress of the citizens, Pradyumna immediately arranged his soldiers and personally got up on a chariot, encouraging the citizens by assuring safety. Following his command, many warriors like Satyaki, Charudeshna, and Samba, all young brothers of Pradyumna, as well as Akrura, Kritavarma, Bhanuvinda, Gada, Shuka, and Sarana, all came out of the city to fight with Shalva. All of them were Maharathis, great warriors, able to fight with thousands of men. All were fully equipped with necessary weapons and assisted by hundreds and thousands of charioteers, elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers. Fierce fighting began between the two parties, exactly like that formerly carried on between the demigods and the demons. The fighting was severe, and whoever observed the fierce nature of the fight felt his bodily hairs stand on end.
Pradyumna immediately counteracted the majestic demonstrations occasioned by the airplane of Shalva, the king of Saubha. By the majestic power of airplane, Shalva had created a darkness as dense as night, but Pradyumna all of a sudden appeared like a rising sun. As with the rising of the sun, the darkness of night immediately dissipated. With the appearance of the Pradyumna, the power exhibited by Shalva became null and void. Each of Pradyumna's arrows had a golden feather at the end, and the shaft was fitted with a sharp iron head. By releasing 25 such arrows, Pradyumna severely injured Shalva's commander-in-chief. He then released another 100 arrows towards the body of Shalva. After this, he pierced each and every soldier by releasing one arrow. He killed the chariot drivers by firing 10 arrows at each one of them, and he killed the carriers like the horses and elephants by releasing 3 arrows directed towards each one. When everyone present on the battlefield saw this wonderful feat of Pradyumna's, the great fighters on both sides praised his acts of chivalry.
But still, the airplane occupied by Salva was very mysterious. It was so extraordinary that sometimes many airplanes would appear to be in the sky, and sometimes there were apparently none. Sometimes the plane was visible and sometimes not visible. And the warriors of the Yadu dynasty were puzzled about the whereabouts of the peculiar airplane. Sometimes they would see the airplane on the ground, sometimes flying in the sky. sometimes resting on the peak of a hill and sometimes floating on the water. The wonderful airplane flew in the sky like a whirling firebrand. It was not steady even for a moment, but despite the mysterious maneuvering of the airplane, the commanders and the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty would immediately rush toward Salva wherever he was present within his airplane and soldiers. The arrows released by the dynasty of the Yadus were as brilliant as the sun and as dangerous as the tongues of serpents. All the soldiers fighting on behalf of Salva soon became distressed by the incessant release of arrows upon them by the heroes of the Yadu dynasty, and Salva himself became unconscious from the attack of these arrows.
The soldiers fighting on behalf of Shalva were also very strong, and the release of the arrows also harassed the heroes of the Yadu dynasty. But still, the Yadus were so strong and determined that they did not move from their strategic positions. The heroes of the Yadu dynasty were determined either to die on the battlefield or to gain victory. They were confident that if they died in the fighting, they would attain a heavenly planet, and if they came out victorious, they would enjoy the world. The name of Shalva's commander-in-chief was Dyuman. He was very powerful, and although bitten by 25 of Pradyumna's arrows, he suddenly attacked Pradyumna with his fierce club and struck him so strongly that Pradyumna became unconscious. Immediately there was a roaring. "Now he is dead! Now he is dead!" The force of the club on Pradyumna's chest was very severe, and it appeared as though his chest had been torn asunder.
Pradyumna's chariot was being driven by the son of Daruka. According to Vedic military principles, the chariot driver and the hero on the chariot must cooperate during the fighting. As such, because it was the duty of the chariot driver to take care of the hero on the chariot during the dangerous and precarious fighting, Daruka's son removed Pradyumna from the battlefield. 2 hours later, in a quiet place, Pradyumna regained consciousness, and when he saw that he was in a place other than the battlefield, he addressed the charioteer and condemned him.
Oh, you have done the most abominable act. Why have you removed me from the battlefield? My dear charioteer, I have never heard that any of our family members was ever removed from the battlefield. None of them left the battlefield while fighting. None of them left the battlefield while fighting. By this removal, you have overburdened me with a great defamation. It will be said that I left the battlefield while fighting was going on. My dear charioteer, I must accuse you. You are a coward and emasculator. Tell me, how can I go before my uncle Balram and my father Krishna? And what shall I say before them? Everyone will talk about me and say that I fled from the fighting place. And if they inquire from me about this, what will be my reply? My sister-in-law will play jokes upon me with sarcastic words. My dear hero, how have you become such a coward? How have you become a eunuch? How have you become so low in the eyes of the fighters who opposed you? I think, my dear charioteer, that you have committed a great offense by removing me from the battlefield.
Page. The charioteer of Pradyumna replied, "My dear sir, I wish a long life for you. I think that I did nothing wrong. For it is the duty of the charioteer to help the fighter in the chariot when he is in a precarious condition. My dear sir, you are completely competent to the battlefield, but it is the duty of the charioteer and the warrior to protect each other in a precarious condition. I was completely aware of the regulative principles of fighting, and I did my duty. The enemy all of a sudden struck you with his club so severely that you lost consciousness. You were in a dangerous position, surrounded by your enemies. Therefore, I was obliged to act as I did. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 76th chapter of Krishna, the battle between Salva and the members of the Yadu dynasty.
Chapter 77. The deliverance of Shalva. After talking with his charioteer, the son of Daruka, Pradyumna, could understand the real circumstances. Therefore, he refreshed himself by washing his mouth and hands, and after arming himself properly with bows and arrows, he asked his charioteer to take him near the place where Shalva's commander-in-chief was standing. During the short absence of Pradyumna from the battlefield, Dhuman, Shalva's commander-in-chief, had been taking over the positions of the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. Appearing on the battlefield, Pradyumna immediately stopped him and smiling shot 8 arrows at him. With 4 arrows he killed Dhuman's 4 horses, and with 1 arrow his chariot driver. With another arrow he cut his bow in 2. With another he cut his flag to pieces, and with the last he severed his head from his body.
On the other fronts, heroes like Gada, Satyaki, and Samba were killing the soldiers of Salva. The soldiers staying with Salva in the airplane were also killed in the fighting, and they fell into the ocean. Each party began to strike the opposite party very severely in a fierce, dangerous battle that continued for 27 days without stopping. While the fight was going on in the city of Dwarika, Krishna was staying at Indraprasth with the Pandavas and King Yudhishthira. This fighting with Salva took place after the Rajasuya Yagya had been performed by King Yudhishthira and after killing of Sisupala. When Lord Krishna understood that there was great danger in the city of Dwarika, he took permission from the elder members of the Pandava family, especially from his aunt Kunti Devi, and started immediately for Dwarika.
Lord Krishna began to think that while he was staying in Hastinapur with Balram after the killing of Shishupal, Shishupal's men must have attacked Dwarka. On hearing Dwarka, Lord Krishna saw that the whole city was greatly endangered. He placed Balramji in a strategic position for the protection of the city, and he himself asked his charioteer Daruka to prepare to start. He said, Daruka, please immediately take me to where Shalva is staying. You may know that this Shalva is a very powerful, mysterious man. Don't fear him in the least. As soon as he got his orders from Lord Krishna, Daruka had him seated on the chariot and drove very quickly towards Shalva.
The charioteer of Lord Krishna was marked with the flag beating the insignia of Garuda, and as soon as the soldier and warriors of the Yadu dynasty saw the flag, they could understand that Lord Krishna was on the battlefield. By this time, almost all the soldiers of Shalva had been killed, but when Shalva saw that Krishna had come to the battlefield, he released a great powerful weapon which flew through the sky with a roaring sound like a great meteor. It was so bright that the whole sky was lit up by its presence, but as soon as Lord Krishna appeared, he tore the great weapon into hundreds and thousands of pieces by releasing his own arrows. Lord Krishna struck Shalva with 16 arrows. With showers of arrows, he overpowered the airplane. Just as the sun in a clear sky overpowers the whole sky by an unlimited number of the molecules of sunshine, Shalva struck a severe blow to the Krishna's left side, where the Lord carried his bow, Saranga. And as a result, the Saranga bow fell from Lord Krishna's hand. This dropping of the bow was indeed wonderful. Great personalities and demigods who were observing the fighting between Shalva and Krishna were most perturbed by this, and they exclaimed, "Alas, alas!"
Salva thought that he had become victorious, and with a roaring sound he addressed Lord Krishna as follows: "You rascal, Krishna, you kidnapped Rukmini forcibly, even in our presence. You baffled my friend Sisubala and married Rukmini. And you married Rukmini yourself. And in the present assembly at King Yudhishthira's Rajasuya Yajna, while my friend Sisubala was a little absent-minded, you took an opportunity to kill him. Everyone thinks that you are a great fighter and that no one can conquer you. So now you will have to prove your strength. I think that if you stand before me any longer with my sharp arrows, I shall send you to a place where from you will never return."
To this, Lord Krishna replied, "Foolish Shalva." To this, Lord Krishna replied, "Foolish Shalva, you are talking nonsensically. You do not know that the moment of death is already upon your head. Actual heroes do not talk much. They prove their prowess by a practical exhibition of chivalrous activities." After saying this, Lord Krishna, in great anger, struck Shalva on the collarbone with his club, so severely that Shalva began to vomit blood and tremble as if he were going to collapse from severe cold. Before Krishna was able to strike him again, however, Shalva became invisible by his mystic power.
Within a few moments, a mysterious unknown man came before Lord Krishna. Crying loudly, he bowed down at the Lord's lotus feet and said to him, "Since you are the most beloved son of your father Vasudeva, your mother Devaki has sent me to inform you of the unfortunate news that Salva has arrested your father and taken him away by force, just as a butcher mercilessly takes away an animal." When Lord Krishna heard this unfortunate news from the unknown man, he at first became most perturbed, just like an ordinary human being. His face showed signs of grief, and he began to cry in a piteous tone. "How could that happen? My brother Lord Balarama is there, and it is impossible for anyone to conquer Balaramji. He is in charge of Dwarika city, and I know he is always alert. How could Salv possibly enter the city and arrest my father in that way? Whatever Salv may be, his power is limited. So how could it be possible that he has conquered the strength of Balaramji and taken away my father, arresting him as described by this man? Alas, destiny is after all very powerful."
While Sri Krishna was thinking like this, Shalva brought before him in custody a man exactly resembling Vasudeva, his father. These were all creations of the mystic power of Shalva. Shalva addressed Krishna, "You rascal, Krishna, look, this is your father who has begotten you and by whose mercy you are still living. Now just see how I kill your father. If you have any strength, try to save him. The mystic juggler Shalva, speaking in this way before Lord Krishna, immediately cut off the head of the false Vasudev. Then, without hesitation, he took away the dead body and got into his airplane. Lord Krishna is the self sufficient Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet, because he was playing the role of a human being, he became very depressed for a moment, as if he had actually lost his father. But at the next moment, he could understand that the arrest and killing of his father were demonstrations of the mystic powers which Shalva had learned from the demon Maya. Coming to his right consciousness, he could see that there was no messenger and no head of his father, but that Shalva had left in his airplane, which was flying in the sky. He then began to think of slaying Shalva.
Krishna's reaction is a controversial point among great authorities and saintly persons. How could Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all power and knowledge, be bewildered in such a way? Lamentation, agreement, and bewilderment are characteristics of our conditioned souls. But how can such things affect the person of the Supreme, who is full of knowledge, power, and all opulence? Actually, it is not at all possible that Lord Krishna was misled by the mystic jugglery of Shalva. He was displaying his pastimes in playing the role of a human being. Great saintly persons and sages who are engaged in the devotional service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and who have thus achieved the greatest perfection of self-realization have transcended the bewilderments of the bodily concept of life. Lord Krishna is the ultimate goal of life for such saintly persons. How then Lord Krishna have been bewildered by the mystic jugglery of Shalva? The conclusion is that Lord Krishna's bewilderment was another opulence of his Supreme Personality.
When Salva thought that Krishna had been bewildered by his mystic representations, he became enraged and began to attack the Lord with greater strength and energy by showing volleys of arrows upon him. But the enthusiasm of Salva can be compared to the speedy march of moths into fire. Lord Krishna, by hurling his arrows with unfathomable strength, injured Salva, whose armor, bow, and jewel helmet all scattered in pieces. With a crashing blow from Krishna's club, Salva's wonderful airplane burst into pieces and fell into the sea. Salva was very careful, and instead of crashing with the airplane, he managed to jump onto the land. He again rushed toward Lord Krishna. When Salva ran swiftly to attack Krishna with his club, Lord Krishna cut off his hand, which fell to the ground with the club. Finally, deciding to kill him, the Lord took up his wonderful disc, which shone like the brilliant sun at the time of the dissolution of the material creation. When Lord Sri Krishna stood up with his disc to kill Salva, he appeared just like a mountain with a red sun rising over it. Lord Krishna then cut off Salva's head, and the head, with its earrings and helmets, fell to the ground. Salva was thus killed in the same way that Vritrasura was killed by Indra, the king of heaven.
When Shalva was killed, all his soldiers and followers cried, "Alas! Alas!" While Shalva's men were thus crying, the demigods from the heavenly planets showered flowers on Krishna and announced the victory by beating drums and blowing bugles. At that very moment, other friends of Shishupal, such as Dantavakra, appeared on the scene to fight with Krishna and avenge the death of Shishupal and others. When Dantavakra appeared before Lord Krishna, he was extremely angry. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 77th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Shalva. Hari Bol.
Chapter 78, the killing of Dantavakra, Viduratha and Romharsana. After the demise of Sisupal, Salv and Paundraka, a foolish demoniac king of the name Dantavakra wanted to kill Krishna to avenge the death of his friend Salva. He became so agitated that he appeared on the battlefield without the proper arms and ammunition and without even a chariot. His only weapon was his great anger, which was red hot. He carried only a club in his hand, but he was so powerful that when he moved, everyone felt the earth tremble. When Lord Krishna saw him approaching in a very heroic mode, he immediately got down from his chariot, for it was a rule of military etiquette that fighting should take place only between equals. Knowing that Dantavakra was alone and armed with only a club, Lord Krishna responded similarly and prepared himself by taking his club in his hand. When Krishna appeared before him, Dantavakra's heroic march was immediately stopped, just as the great furious waves of the ocean are stopped by the beach.
At that time, Dantavakra, who was the king of Karusa, stood firmly with his club and spoke to Lord Krishna as follows. It is a great pleasure and fortunate opportunity, Krishna, that we are seeing each other face to face. My dear Krishna, after all, you are my maternal cousin, and I should not kill you in this way. But unfortunately, you have committed a great mistake by killing my friend Shalva. Moreover, you are not satisfied by killing my friend. I know that you want to kill me also. Because of your determination, I must kill you by tearing you to pieces with my club. Krishna, although you are my relative, you are foolish. You are our greatest enemy. So I must kill you today, just as a person removes a boil on his body by a surgical operation. I am always very much obliged to my friends, and I therefore consider myself indebted to my dear friend Shalva. I can liquidate my indebtedness to him only by killing you.
As the caretaker of an elephant tries to control the animal by striking it with his trident, Dantavakra tried to control Krishna simply by speaking strong words. After finishing his vituperations, he struck He struck Krishna on the head with his club and made a roaring sound like a lion. But Krishna, although struck strongly by the club of Dantavakra, didn't move even an inch, nor did he feel any pain. Taking his Kaumudiki club and moving very skillfully, Krishna struck Dantavakra's chest so fiercely that Dantavakra's heart split in twain. As a result, Dantavakra began to vomit blood. His hair scattered and he fell to the ground, spreading his hands and legs. Within only a few minutes, all that remained of Dantavakra was a dead body on the ground. After the death of Dantavakra, just at the time of Shishupala's death, in the presence of all the persons standing there, a small particle of spiritual effulgence came out of the demon's body and went wonderfully and very wonderfully merged into the body of Lord Krishna.
Dandavakra had a brother named Vidurada, who was overwhelmed with grief at Dandavakra's death. Out of grief and anger, Vidurada was breathing very heavily, and just to avenge the death of his brother, he appeared before Lord Krishna with a sword and a shield in his hands. He wanted to kill Krishna immediately. When Lord Krishna understood that Viduratha was looking for the opportunity to strike him with his sword, he employed his Sudarshana Chakra, his razor sharp disc, and without delay cut off Viduratha's head with its helmet and earrings.
In this way, after killing Shalva and destroying his wonderful airplane, and then killing Dantavakra and Viduratha, Lord Krishna at last entered his city, Dwaraka. It would not have been possible for anyone but Krishna to kill these great heroes, and therefore all the demigods from heaven and the human beings on the surface of the globe were glorifying him. Great sages and ascetics, the denizens of the Siddha and Gandharva planets, the denizens known as Vidyadharas, Vasuki, and the Mahanagas, and beautiful angels, the inhabitants of Pitraloka, the Yakshas, the Kinnaras, and the Charanas, all showered flowers upon him and sang songs of his victory in great jubilation. Decorating the entire city very festively, the citizens of Dwarka held a great celebration, and when Lord Krishna passed through the city, all the members of the Vrishni dynasty and the heroes of the Yadu dynasty followed him with great respect. These are some of the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, the master of all mystic power and the Lord of all cosmic manifestations. Those who are fools, who are like animals, sometimes think that Krishna is defeated, but factually, he is the supreme personality of Godhead, and no one can defeat him. He always remains victorious over everyone. He alone is God, and all others are his subservient order carriers.
Once upon a time, Lord two rival parties in the Kuru dynasty. One headed by Duryodhan and the other the idea, and he tried to act as mediator to stop the fighting. Finding it impossible and not wishing to take an active part on behalf of either party, he left Dwarika on the plea of visiting various holy places of pilgrimage. He first of all visited the place of pilgrimage known as Prabhas Kshetra. He took his bath there and he pacified the local brahmanas and offered oblations to the demigods, pitas, great sages, and people in general, in accordance with Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. That is the Vedic method of visiting holy places. After this, accompanied by some respectable brahmanas, he decided to visit different places on the bank of the river Saraswati. He gradually visited such places as Prithudaka, Bindusara, Tritakupa, Sudarsana Tirtha, Vishal Tirtha, Brahma Tirtha, and Chakra Tirtha. Besides these, he also visited all the holy places on the bank of the Saraswati river, running towards the east. After this, he visited all the principal holy places on the bank of the Yamuna and on the bank of the Ganges. Thus, he gradually came to the holy place known as Naimisaranya.
Naimisharanya is still existing in India, and in ancient times it was especially used for the meetings of great sages and saintly persons with the aim of understanding spiritual life and self-realization. When Lord Balaram visited that place, there was a great sacrifice being performed by a great assembly of transcendentalists. Such meetings were planned to last thousands of years. When Lord Balram arrived, all the participants in the meeting, great sages, ascetics, brahmanas, and learned scholars, immediately arose from their seats and welcomed him with great honor and respect. Some offered him respects by standing up and then paying obeisances, and those who were elderly, great sages, and brahmanas offered him blessings after standing up. After this formality, Lord Balram was offered a suitable seat, and everyone present worshipped him. Everyone in the assembly stood up in the presence of Balram because they knew him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Education or learning means to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although Lord Balram appeared on the earth as a Kshatriya, all the Brahmanas and sages stood up because they knew who Lord Balram was.
Unfortunately, after being worshipped and seated in his place, Lord Balrama saw Romaharshana, the disciple of the Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of Godhead, still sitting on the Vyasasena. He had neither gotten up from his seat nor offered him respects. Because he was seated on the Vyasasana, he foolishly thought himself greater than the Lord. Therefore, he didn't get down from his seat or bow down before the Lord. Lord Balrama then considered the history of the Romaharshana. He was born in a Suta family or a mixed family born of a Brahmana woman and a Kshatriya man. Therefore, although Romaharshana considered Balrama a Kshatriya, he should not have remained sitting on a higher seat. According to his position by birth, he should not even have accepted the higher sitting position because many learned Brahmanas and sages were present. Lord Balrama also observed that Romaharshana not only refused to come down from his exalted seat, but didn't even stand up and offer his respect when Balramji entered the assembly. Lord Balrama did not like the audacity of Romaharshana and becoming very angry at him, declared from his seat, "This man, Romaharshana, is so impudent that he was accepted a higher seat than that of all the respectable Brahmanas present here, although he was born in a degraded Pratiloma family."
When a person is seated on the Vyasasana, he does not generally have to stand to receive a particular person entering the assembly. But in this case, the situation was different because Lord Baladeva is not an ordinary human being. Therefore, although Romaharshana Sutta was voted to the Vyasasana by all the Brahmanas, he should have followed the behavior of other learned sages and Brahmanas present, and should have known that Lord Balarama is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Respects are always due him, even though such respects can be avoided in the case of an ordinary man. The appearance of Krishna and Balarama is especially meant for a re-establishment of the religious principles. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the highest religious principle is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms that the topmost perfection of religion is to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord.
When Lord Balram saw that Romaharshana Sutta did not understand the highest principle of religion, in spite of his having studied all the Vedas, he certainly could not support his position. Romaharshana Sutta had been given the chance to become a perfect Brahmana, but because of his ill behavior in his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his low birth was immediately remembered. Romaharshana Sutta had been given the position of a Brahmana, but he had not been born in the family of a Brahmana. He had been born in a Pratiloma family. According to the Vedic concept, there are two kinds of mixed family heritage, called Anuloma and Pratiloma. When a male is united with a female of a lower caste, the offspring is called Anuloma. But when a male unites with a woman of a higher caste, the offspring is called Pratiloma. Romaharshana Sutta belonged to a Pratiloma family because his father was a Kshatriya and his mother a Brahmana. Because Romaharshana's transcendental realization was not perfect, Lord Balram remembered his Pratiloma heritage. The idea is that any man may be given the chance to become a Brahmana, but if he improperly uses the position of a Brahmana without actual realization, then his elevation to the Brahminical position is not valid.
After seeing the deficiency of realization in Romaharshana Sutta, Lord Balarama decided to chastise him for being puffed up. Lord Balarama therefore said, "This man is liable to be awarded the death punishment because although he has the good qualification of being a disciple of Lord Vyasdeva, and although he has studied all the Vedic literature from this exalted personality, he was not submissive in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a person who is actually a Brahmana and is very learned must automatically become very gentle also. But although Romaharshana Sutta was very learned and had been given the chance to become a Brahmana, he had not become gentle. From this, we can understand that one who is puffed up by material acquisitions cannot acquire the gentle behavior befitting a Brahmana. The learning of such a person is as good as a valuable jewel decorating the hood of a serpent. Despite the valuable jewel on the hood, a serpent is still a serpent and is as fearful as an ordinary serpent. If a person does not become meek and humble, all his studies of the Vedas and Puranas and his vast knowledge of the Shastras are simply outward dress, like the costume of a theatrical artist dancing on the stage. Lord Balarama considered, "I have appeared in order to chastise false persons who are internally impure but externally pose themselves as very learned and religious. My killing of such persons is proper to check them from further sinful activity."
Lord Balram had avoided taking part in the battle of Kurukshetra, and yet, because of his position as an incarnation, the re-establishment of religious principles was his prime duty. Considering these points, he killed Romaharshana Sutta simply by striking him with a kusha straw, which was nothing but a blade of grass. If someone questions how Lord Balram could kill Romaharshana Sutta simply by striking him with a blade of kusha grass, the answer is given in Srimad Bhagavatam by the use of the word Prabhu, Master. The Lord's position is always transcendental, and because he is omnipotent, he can act as he likes without being obliged to follow the material laws and principles. Thus, it was possible for him to kill Romaharshana Sutta simply by striking him with a blade of kusha grass.
At the death of Romaharshana Sutta, everyone present became much aggrieved and cried out, "Alas, alas!" Although all the Brahmanas and sages present knew Lord Balarama to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they didn't hesitate to protest Lord's action. They humbly submitted, Our dear Lord, we think that your action is not in line with the religious principle. Dear Lord Yadunandana, we may inform you that we Brahmanas posted Romharshana Sutta on that exalted position for the duration of this great sacrifice. He was seated on the Vyasasana by our election, and when one is seated on the Vyasasana, it is improper for him to stand up to receive a person. Moreover, we awarded Romahashana Sutta an undisturbed duration of life. Under the circumstances, since your lordship had killed him without knowing all these facts, we think that your action is equal to killing a Brahmana. Dear Lord, deliverer of fallen souls, we know for certain that you are the knower of all Vedic principles. You are the master of all mystic powers. Therefore, the Vedic injunctions cannot ordinarily be applied to you. But we respectfully advise you to show your causeless mercy upon others by kindly atoning for this killing of the Romharshana Sutta. We do not, however, suggest what kind of act you should perform to atone for killing him. We simply suggest that you adopt some method of atonement so that others may follow your action. What is done by a great personality is followed by the ordinary man.
The Lord replied, Yes, I must atone for this action, which may have been proper for me, but is improper for others. Therefore, I think it is my duty to execute a suitable act of atonement enjoined in the authorized scriptures. Simultaneously, I can also give this Romashna Sutta life again, with a span of long duration, sufficient strength and full power of the senses. Not only this, but if you desire, I shall be glad to award him anything else you may ask. I shall be very glad to grant all the boons to fulfill your desires.
This statement by Lord Balram definitely confirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is free to act in any way. Although his killing of Romaharshana Sutta may be considered improper, he could immediately counteract it with greater profit to all. Therefore, one should not imitate the actions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord. All the great learned sages present realized that although they considered the action of Lord Balram improper, the Lord was immediately able to compensate with greater profits. Not wanting to detract from the mission of the Lord in killing Romaharshana Sutta, all of them prayed, Our dear Lord, the uncommon use of your Kusha weapon to kill Romaharshana Sutta may remain as it is. Because you desired to kill him, he should not be brought to life again. At the same time, your lordships may remember that we sages and brahmanas voluntarily gave him long life. Therefore, such a benediction should not be nullified. Thus, the request of all the learned brahmanas in the assembly was ambiguous because they wanted to keep intact their benediction that Roma Harshana Sutta would continue to live until the end of the great sacrifice, but at the same time they did not want to nullify Balram's killing him.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead therefore solved this problem in a manner befitting his exalted position. He said, Because the Son is produced from the body of the Father, the Vedas enjoin that the Son is the Father's representative. Therefore, I say that Ugrasrava Sutta, the son of Romharsana Sutta, should henceforth take his father's position and continue the discourses on the Puranas. And because you wanted Romharsana to have a longer duration of life, this benediction will be transferred to his son. The son, Ugrasrava, will have all the facilities you offered, a longer duration of life in a good and healthy body, with no disturbances and full strength of all the senses. Lord Balarama then implored all the sages and brahmanas that aside from the benediction offered to the son of Romaharshana, they should ask from him any other benediction, and he would be prepared to fulfill it immediately. The Lord thus placed himself in the position of an ordinary Kshatriya and informed the sages that he did not know in what way he could come atone for his killing of Romaharshana, but whatever they would suggest, he would be glad to accept.
The Brahmanas could understand the purpose of the Lord, and thus they suggested that he atone in a manner beneficial to them. They said, "Our dear Lord, there is a very powerful demon of the name Balvala. He is the son of Ivala, and he visits this sacred place of sacrifice every fortnight on the full moon and moonless days and creates a great disturbance by the discharge of our duties in the sacrifice. O descendant of the Dasarha family, we all request you to kill this demon. We think that if you kindly kill him, that will be your atonement on our behalf. The demon occasionally comes here and profusely throws upon us contaminated, impure things like pus, blood, stool, urine, and wine. He pollutes this sacred place by showering such filth upon us. After killing Balvala, you may continue touring all the sacred places of pilgrimage for 12 months. And in that way, you will be completely freed from all contamination. That is our prescription." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 78th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Dantavakra, Viduratha, and Romaharsana. Hari Bol. So this concludes 1 hour of reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. We are very grateful to you for allowing us to come here and read Krishna book to you. And as usual, we offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. And to each other, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Krishna Book, Jai Srila Prabhupada.